The thing we're going to do today, Luca Screen, is a little bit avant-garde, and so it's a good time to talk about what avant-garde is, since our activity is kind of this thing. So, avant-garde is technically French. I feel like I say this a lot in creative writing, but it's just a really normal part of language, that sometimes we adopt ideas and concepts and words from other languages into our language because they are so popular. So practice saying it, everybody. Avant-garde. Say it. Avant-garde, yeah. And so I've heard people say this one really wrong. Like one year a girl was like, avant-garde. Avant-garde. And the technical spelling does have the hyphen in between. Say it one more time. Avant-garde. Avant-garde, yeah. So if something is avant-garde, cash screen all the way around, it means it's kind of experimental. If it's avant-garde, it might be really futuristic. If it's avant-garde, it's kind of radical. It's really out there. It might be really unorthodox. And you can have avant-garde things in not only in creative writing, but also in any kind of art. Just like with juxtaposition, which I'm trying to find, but it's on there somewhere, right? But juxtaposition applies to any kind of art, and same with avant-garde. But it's also not just an art thing. You can have just general avant-garde ideas. So the picture is avant-garde. That is not a normal outfit. This happens a lot in the music industry a lot, where somebody is new in the industry, and sometimes the people who are running certain industries will be like, hey, listen, do you want to make money or not? Do you want to get noticed or not? And so this happened to Katy Perry at kind of the beginning of her career, and same with Lady Gaga. Nowadays, they've calmed down a lot. But when Lady Gaga and Katy Perry were kind of first new on the scene, they wore some really avant-garde things. Like, Lady Gaga got really famous because she wore a dress made out of meat to an award ceremony. And that's not normal. And that's why they had her do that, though. She got noticed for it. And it was in the news for 2 weeks of she wore raw meat to it, right? And so avant-garde sometimes it's really weird. And sometimes it's weird bad. And sometimes it's weird good. For example, nowadays, Dr. Seuss is no big deal. Everyone grows up on Dr. Seuss at one point or another. But when Dr. Seuss was first kind of new in the children's book world, he was thought to be pretty avant-garde. People thought he was a little crazy, actually mentally unstable. Because he was doing pictures in ways no one had seen before, and the rhyming was very different than was normal. And so sometimes avant-garde is really experimental, and sometimes unusual is good, and sometimes unusual is are you okay? Do you need help? Right? And that's kind of a thing that happens in the art world, yeah.
Is a good example Happy Gilmore, because in the movie, not the movie, but him in the movie, because he's
oh, yeah.
Normally golf is
exactly. Golf is very serene and austere. And then you get this dude who's let's do this, right? And he's chill, yeah. So that's, I think, the non-example. If you think of normal golf, they're a lot more subtle and traditional and kind of plain. And then you get Adam Sandler playing Happy Gilmore, and he's wildly different. He's very avant-garde. So in creative writing, I think it's important that we know about avant-garde, because cool things can happen in creative writing when we are brave enough to be listen, I know this is avant-garde, and I know this is a little weird, and I know this is kind of experimental and pretty out there, but what if it becomes the next big thing? Right? That's how any type of art has happened, you guys, is somebody was brave enough to try something new, and it caught on. And so often, not always, but often avant-garde ideas, something that's really experimental and kind of weird, sometimes they become normalized, which is what happened with Dr. Seuss, right? And how many of you have heard the name Picasso? Most of us, right? Raise your hand if you, yeah. And Picasso, he, first of all, kind of did have some, mental, a little bit unstable. But also, at the time, his art was wildly different than anything anyone had seen, so it was very avant-garde. And nowadays, we're yeah, that's what Picasso's art looked like. It's not a big deal anymore. We're kind of used to this weird form of art, but at the time, it was so different. Same with fashion. So, fashion is a pretty interesting industry because at the very highest level, it's very avant-garde. And then somebody will do something really weird and very out there. And then when it trickles down through normal stores, you might get a little element of that avant-garde thing. But that's kind of how different fashions have come into play. Like, men used to wear high heels. That was a normal thing in Victorian England. And nowadays that's different, right? But that's kind of the fashion world. It's a little weird because you'll see things like this at Fashion Week. That's obviously, no one's going to wear that to school. However, like an element, like the bow, like an oversized bow might be a thing. Or you might see like something with a lot more bling, right? And so let me scroll through a couple of these. But Fashion Week is in Paris, and there's like in Milan and London. There's a lot of weird avant-garde, because they truly are just being experimental. They're doing things that no one has ever really seen before. And it's not like anyone's going to show up to school wearing this. But at the same time, that's how anything new comes into play, is somebody is brave enough to try something new and something a little different. How many of you have ever heard, how many of you have ever heard of dubstep? So dubstep is a type of music that it's shocking to me that only 2 of you raised your hands, because about 10 years ago, at Albion, thank you, yep. At Albion, dubstep was all Albion kids listened to. And that's how fast trends change, right? So nowadays, we don't know, but dubstep is basically electronic music. They're known for like really intense, like thumping, like dum, 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 like those kind of beats. And there was this dubstep artist named Skrillex. Everybody at Albion was obsessed with Skrillex. All the cool kids knew Skrillex, and now it's funny that nobody knows him. But that happens in the art world. So music sometimes, like I feel like that's how I knew I was getting old. Is there was a moment, my husband and I were driving somewhere, and a song came on the radio, and we both looked at each other, and we're like, I don't think this is music. Like, what? This is just garbage noise. What is happening? And that's how you know you're getting old. It will happen to you one day also. But that's kind of just what happens, is somebody comes up with something new and different that no one has seen. Same with Tesla trucks. Like, now they're old news, but the first time I saw one, I was like, we're living in the future. This is so crazy. Yeah. Tim Burton movies. How many of you know a Tim Burton movie? Tell me a name of one. Nightmare Before Christmas. Now is like no big deal, but at the time, people were like, huh? What else? Corpse Bride and
Fantastic Mr. Fox.
I haven't seen that one, so now I need to. Yeah. So, again, as a creative writer, you should be thinking, okay, maybe I'm not brave enough to do it when I think people are looking, but maybe I might be brave enough to try something a little new, a little experimental, because what if I can come up with the next new thing? So everybody think of avant-garde. Go ahead and fill in your you try box. Cecilia, can you pass that back? And then I want to hear a couple ideas. But remember, you got to give me something that's not already on the example. There's lots. You could think of almost any type of art. It doesn't even have to be art, though. Like, some inventions are avant-garde, right? Or even just, like, social interactions can be avant-garde. So as soon as somebody comes up with a new one that I don't already have, tell me, Tristan, what do you think? I don't even know what that is, but I will believe you that it is avant-garde. Did you say dissonance music? It's purposely out of tune, and it's purposely meant to mess with what we think is normally music. What else? Yes! Especially like anything with multiverse. When it first was happening, I think a lot of people were like, this is confusing, I don't understand. But now the idea of a multiverse is kind of normal, right? And again, that's normal in the avant-garde world. Yeah! And nowadays, that's such old news, right? But at the beginning of the year, it's all anyone could talk about. Cecilia. Alice in Wonderland, for sure. Good avant-garde. Yeah, which, I don't know if you saw the meme of the week is specifically about that idea. But yes, that Shakespeare would sometimes just make up words. And it was kind of weird and avant-garde, and now a lot of them are normal. Okay, so go turn that one in. And now we're going to do an avant-garde thing.